Welcome to the Battuta Group 1 presentation. This presentation was done by Heather, Juhwan, Parker, and Kayleigh. We hope you enjoy our presentation on Battuta. Within the excerpt, Battuta, there are features of the political practice and ceremonies of the Malay people that can be discussed. The main traveler within the excerpt being analyzed is Battuta. He is a famous traveler who embarked on journeys around Africa and Asia. On his adventures, Battuta would record what he saw and did, which is the excerpt being talked about. The specific place being analyzed in this article is Battuta's interaction with the Malay people in particular. There are a few aspects of their practices and rituals that will be emphasized. For example, how the political organization was focused on Islam, the politeness of the people, as well as their bathing and dining rituals, and lastly, how the government leaders were treated by the people. According to Battuta, the Kingdom of Mali's political system and organization under the reign of Sultan Mansa Suleiman were all heavily influenced by their main religion, Islam. The organization of power in the Kingdom of Mali were based upon Islamic principles, much like other Islamic nations of the time. In the Battuta's records, the judges were called Qadi, the title which originated from a system of appointing men of law starting from the time of Muhammad, the principal founder of Islam. They were appointed among the people who practiced law and held the position to judge and make decisions directly under the king. During a banquet where the Sultan invites all the important and position-holding men of the kingdom to discuss issues regarding their religion, the Quran, the books of Islam, were brought about to read, and all who gathered with the king prayed. This tells us that Islam was in the center of their politics, and men in power in Mali were faithful to their beliefs. Also, as the kingdom established alliances among the surrounding nations, even the other sultans who made allegiance to the Kingdom of Mali were of Islamic backgrounds. As the interaction of Iban and tribes surrounding Mali shows, in both Kabara and Sakha, there are sultans who owe allegiance to the king of Mali. The inhabitants of Sakha are of old standing in Islam. Looking at this interaction, we can know that even those who made connections with the Kingdom of Mali were of the same faith as Mali, which can allow them to create a stronger political bond and relationships. As the political systems of the kingdom is centered on the Islamic faith, the people of the kingdom were also heavily influenced as well, trickling from the top to the bottom. According to Iban, the Sultan and the people showed a strong sense of justice, have a greater abhorrence of injustice than any other people. Their sultan shows no mercy to anyone who is guilty of the least act of it. There is complete security in their country. As part of the 5 pillars of Islam, Zakah guides the people to show justice and equality for other, which gave the people of Mali such strong sense of justice. And the people of Mali, including the Sultan himself, held fast to the fasting, also part of the 5 pillars, and the daily and Friday prayers as part of their tradition and ritual. The political system and organization in Mali was well established, and the kingdom showed signs of political peace and unity of the people due to the invisible and unified rule of Islam. Much of the ceremonial practice in Mali accounted for non-religious virtues, that of which included the kindness to strangers, as well as certain dining and bathing rituals. For example, in one instance, the Bond talks of the town of Zabid. The people of this town hold the famous picnics called Subut an Akhil. In this wise, they go out to the palm groves every Saturday during the season of the coloring and ripening of the dates. Not a soul remains in the town, whether of the townsfolk or of the visitors. In this notion, the people of Mali have dedicated much of their time to praising the land and what they can cultivate of it. Another intriguing instance throughout the text are the people's generosity and kindness offered to Abu and the other strangers. For example, while in Somalia, Ibn Battuta notes, "We stayed there in Mogadishu 3 days, food being brought to us 3 times a day, and on the 4th, a Friday, the Qadi and one of the wazirs brought me a set of garments. We then went to the mosque and prayed behind the sultan's screen. This was not the first instance in which the higher lords and Qadis showed such kindness and virtue to the travelers, despite being foreign to their culture and land. In another instance in Konya, the Qadi showed us even greater consideration and hospitality than our former benefactors, and sent his son with us in his place to the bath. In Mali, such respect would not be shown as it was in Konya to send someone of almost the highest honor to show Ibn Battuta to the bath. Such generosity plays a key role that could surprise the reader to understand that not all of the people in Mali are traitorous villains. One of the main characteristics of Mali political practice and ceremony is that governmental leaders were treated with immense respect. In other words, the Ibn Battuta text described many examples of how the king of Mali was provided with certain gifts and treated with a certain amount of respect on a regular basis. When looking back specifically at the text, there are many instances when it describes certain features that show a significant amount of respect was given for all leaders. For example, it states that when describing one of the places the king sits, it is carpeted with silk and cushions placed on it. Over it is raised the umbrella, which is a sort of pavilion made of silk, surmounted by a bird in gold about the size of a falcon. This description of an elaborately decorated sitting area shows that this was a common practice of the Mali people to surround their leaders in riches, which indicates significant respect for those people. Further into the text, it again describes their leaders being surrounded in riches. The armor bearers being in magnificent arms, quivers of gold and silver, swords ornamented with gold and with golden scabards, gold and silver lances, and crystal maces. Similar to the above excerpt, this description also describes the riches surrounding kings, which represents respect for the king. Additionally, political leaders were also waited on by servants around the clock. The Sultan is preceded by his musicians, who carry gold and silver gumabris, 2-stringed guitars, and behind him come 300 armed slaves. This excerpt is one of many references slaves serving the king, and more broadly, it is an example of the respect given to Mali political leaders. There were also specific procedures that visitors to the king's courts must follow. For example, the text states, if the sultan delivers any remarks during his audience, those present take off their turbans and put them down, and listen in silence to what he says. This simple procedure shows respect for the king, and therefore was a necessity. Combining all of these excerpts reveals that the Mali kings were shown significant amounts of respect throughout their daily life. The specific excerpt that was examined above was Ibn Battuta's interaction with the Mali people. Through Ibn Battuta's travels and documentation, the political practices and ceremonies that the Mali people were able to be seen. Ibn Battuta was able to witness how the community works and what they are like, not only to each other, but also to other travelers as well. The political organization that was discussed was heavily centered on Islam in the Mali community. Aspects of how the people treated others, and strangers specifically, was seen, as well as dining and bathing practices. Another aspect of the Mali people that was seen was how respected the government officials were treated by the people. All of those events and characteristics display who the Mali people were and what political practices and ceremonies they participated in. This last slide is our works cited page. It has the text and all of the pictures that were used in the presentation. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation on Ibn Battuta, and we hope that you learned something and have a wonderful day. Thank you.